Welcome back everybody. Today, as you can tell by the title, is a bit different than my typical Wednesday video. I've gotten a little bit burnt out on doing the team previews every single week, so I wanted to change it up, and today I'm going to be creating the best possible NBA team that money can buy under the luxury tax. But before we start, there are a few rules to keep in mind. First, the 2018-19 luxury tax is around $123 million, so that's going to be my spending limit for player salaries. Second, all of these are 2018-19 player salaries, and I'm constructing a team just for this season, so any years in the contract beyond this coming season are irrelevant. Third, I'm only allowed to use 2 players that are still on their rookie contracts, because that would obviously be a great way to get all-stars on cheap deals, and this wouldn't be nearly as interesting. Fourth, I'll be constructing a 14-man roster with these restrictions, and just one side note, I'm not going to be counting DeMarcus Cousins in this because that would just be cheating. As always, these are my opinions and there are a ton of possibilities on how to build a team this way, so I'll be giving my reasoning for each of my picks. And if you share your own thoughts and opinions in the comments section, which is encouraged, I ask that you give reasons for your picks as well. Okay, let's get started. Right off the jump, when I started looking at filling out this team, I knew that I wasn't going to be able to fit in guys at the top of the league payroll. I mean, it would certainly be nice to have LeBron James or Steph Curry or James Harden on this team, but in terms of cost efficiency, there are better deals around the league in terms of the value I'd be getting back in exchange for their salary. And with a relatively limited budget, I was looking for all-star caliber players that wouldn't break the bank. Starting off the point guard spot is a bit of a surprising one for some, and that is Kemba Walker. As I recently mentioned in last week's NBA Jeopardy episode, which is going to be a weekly thing from now on because you guys absolutely killed it with the likes last week. People were loving it in the comments section, so that's going to be a weekly thing. But anyway, Kemba is the cheapest 2018 All-Star that isn't on a rookie deal or named DeMarcus Cousins. With just a $12 million salary for next season, it was a no-brainer to put him on this team. He can create in ball screens either as a scorer or playmaker, but probably even more important than that, he can play off the ball and space the floor for the other stars on the team that will obviously be revealed in a moment. It was important to me that most spots on the team were occupied by guys that could make plays themselves, but also be good off-ball shooters, because as you would expect with a hand-picked team like this, there's plenty of talent to go around, which is why Walker was picked over guys like John Wall, for example, who has a pretty cheap deal for this coming season, but doesn't space the floor the same way that Walker can. Next up, sharing the backcourt with Walker is Klay Thompson. Now don't worry, this isn't going to be the Warriors 2.0 or anything, and Klay is the only Golden State player on the roster. With a salary of just around $19 million for next season, he's the ideal two-way player for this or really any other team. We all know what he brings to the table, so I'm not going to stay on this one for very long, but to get a lights-out shooter and strong defender on the wings for less than $20 million is a steal in this kind of scenario, and a no-brainer pick for me. At this point in the process of putting the team together, I knew that I would have to start spending some money to really make this the best roster that I could. I mean, Kemba and Klay are good values, but I needed more star power to really have the best group possible. And that meant getting some more expensive guys on the wings while still sticking with my strategy of cost efficiency. With that in mind, I went with Giannis Antetokounmpo and Kawhi Leonard. Now, each of these guys are pretty underpaid relative to their place on the totem pole across the entire league when healthy, at around $24 and $23 million respectively. Giannis gives the entire group a boost in playmaking, and although he won't be a great floor spacer, he's pretty much the only perimeter player that should have that issue, as you'll see the more the roster gets revealed. He also has great defensive and positional versatility, allowing for bigger or smaller lineups. Now when it comes to Leonard, I'm obviously assuming that he's healthy and is back to his old form from his time with the Spurs, in which he was arguably a top 5 player in the entire league. He can play positions 2 through 4 while being a solid playmaker, off-ball shooter, and outstanding defender. Now, obviously, as with all of these guys, he wouldn't be used at as high of a rate as he was in San Antonio or will be this season in Toronto, but he brings everything to the table that's missing from this lineup on the wings. Last up in the starting lineup is the 5 spot, and this was a big struggle for me. I mean, I knew that I wanted to save my rookie salary spots for the bench and use all of my bigger salary numbers on the starting group. But at this point, I was already feeling the pinch of the payroll restrictions. I was already at almost $78 million through the first 4 players, and I still had 9 spots to fill. Originally, I went with Joel Embiid, but his $25 million salary didn't leave nearly enough money on the table to fill out the bench properly. In the end, however, I decided on Clint Capela and his $15.4 million salary for this coming season. Even though it obviously would have been nice to have a versatile scoring presence in the lineup like Embiid, in the end, I figured this team would have enough star power on the perimeter to score points and make plays, so an ideal fit at the 5 spot would be a relatively cheap rim protector and lob threat at the rim, which is exactly the role Capela fills. Now with the starting lineup completely filled out, I felt pretty good about the team and payroll situation. I had big-time star power in Kawhi and Giannis, and great complementary players in Klay, Kemba, and Capela, all at right around $94 million in salary, leaving me about $29 million to fill out the bench, which is right around $3.6 million per bench player, and I still had both of my rookie salary spots available. With those 2 rookie scale deals, I knew that I was looking for borderline all-star level guys that were drafted in the mid-first round or later. Now, the reasoning for this is had I went with a guy like Jason Tatum, even though his deal is very cheap relative to the value that he provides, his $6.7 million salary as a former top 3 pick is too rich for these extremely valuable rookie scale spots. But I also knew that I didn't want to go the route of a guy like Kyle Kuzma, who is making less than $2 million this coming season as a former non-lottery pick, but isn't the same kind of difference maker that I was really looking for. As a result, I ended up going with Donovan Mitchell and Devin Booker, both of which have salaries right around $3.1 million. Really quickly, yes, I know that Booker signed a max deal this summer, but he still has 1 year left on his rookie scale contract before that officially kicks in. Both of these guys fit the bill in terms of on or off ball playmakers. They can also space the floor around the other stars on the roster. They each will likely have their struggles defensively at times, especially Booker, but as bench guys, they won't have to go against top tier talent as often as the starters, so their two-way impact wasn't as much of a consideration. They both fell into that perfect in-between of being cheap as former late lottery picks on their rookie deals, while also being high impact players rather than just role players. For example, using the Tatum scenario from earlier, had I went with the Celtics wing, I would have spent more on just that one player than I did on both Mitchell and Booker combined. So even though Tatum's deal is a bargain, it isn't nearly as good of a value as Mitchell and Booker's in this scenario. With all the big name guys and rookies taken care of, now it was really time to jump into the bargain bin. I had 6 spots to fill and about $23 million left in payroll to do so. But the tricky thing was finding good players on deals that cheap that weren't on rookie scale contracts. The first player I came up with is Yogi Ferrell, a quick playmaking point guard that's a solid off-ball shooter, and although he is undersized and struggles defensively at times, there are other guys on the roster to cover that up when he's on the floor, all at just $3 million a year. Next to him is Bryn Forbes, a shooting specialist that has similar issues as Ferrell from a size and defensive standpoint, but again, these aren't going to be perfect players, so getting a good shooter at around $3 million works for me. Next up, I wanted to get some versatile players on the wing, which led me to Michael Beasley, Glenn Robinson III, and Mike Scott. Each of these guys certainly have flaws. Beasley isn't a great defender nor a high-volume three-point shooter. Robinson doesn't shoot enough threes either and has seen inconsistent run so far in his career, and Scott is a bit undersized for a combo forward, but they all have their strengths as well and provide the versatility to fill the 3 and 4 spots around the more talented guys on the roster. And again, with these last spots, that's about all I can ask for. Last up, I needed a backup big man, and this one was pretty easy. Nerlens Noel and his $1.75 million salary. He was one of the biggest bargains of the offseason to me, someone that had plenty of issues in Dallas, but is nonetheless a talented player. If he can buy into the team, he'd be a great rim protector and finisher, not unlike the starting 5-man in Capela. Now, I wouldn't expect much more of him other than energy, rebounding, and defense, so you really can't beat that cheap of a deal for a player that could have this kind of impact. And there you go, the best NBA roster that I could come up with under the luxury tax and the restrictions I gave in the beginning. In the end, I actually had some money to spare with a team payroll of right around $120 million. Now, the roster is certainly a bit top heavy, but that's by design because by the time the postseason rolls around, only the top 7 or 8 guys are playing anyway, and a group of the starters plus the rookies and Noel would be as good as any in basketball in my opinion, with the rest of the roster having some specialty skills that would make them valuable in certain situations as well. Once again, this is just my opinion, so I would love to know what you guys think as well and what your ideal lineup would be. This is something that I had a ton of fun with and look forward to doing more in the future, so if you have more lineup challenges for me, please leave those in the comment section and I'll take a look. My name is Tucker, this has been Sporting Logically. Thank you all so much for watching. If you missed any of my previous Monday, Wednesday, Friday videos, then be sure to check out the boxes on screen, and I'll see you all next time.